This is Beyond the Verdict. I'm John Horford. Virtually, we have our friend and co-host, Irene Cook. And with me in the studio again today, even though she says that she's a guest and not a co-host, is my wife, Christina.
Hey.
What's up?
Hi, guys.
Hey.
You love that, like, hey. So today we're talking about a man that has inspired numerous classic horror characters. A guy from Wisconsin, a guy who was serial killer, necrophiliac.
I don't know if that's proven.
What?
Necrophiliac?
Oh, was it not?
No.
Did it necrophilia?
No.
Oh, do you know what necrophilia is?
Correct. Yes, I do.
What's necrophilia?
Sexually aroused by dead corpses.
Oh,
or
okay.
just dead bodies, whatever.
Oh, okay. Well, if you have a box of vulvas and use them for specific activities, I don't know.
I don't think he ever admitted to using them for specific activities.
Did he not?
No, he said they just sat in a box.
He wanted to, but that the bodies smelled too badly.
Well, then you're not really a necrophiliac, right? Because
I mean, if you want to, but you just don't.
I mean, if the intent is there and you didn't complete it, you're really on the border of that. So
Yeah, I mean, I've never been like, that dead body. Yum.
yeah, because they
Like,
smell.
Yeah, but if it didn't smell, still no interest. That's
because
my
he's
only
really,
point.
really disgusting.
Yes, but I appreciate you pushing back on that. We need more of that. So
You want us to push back more? Okay, noted.
Myron, you do it enough. I only said that to Christina. But we're talking about Ed Gein. Does someone want to do a little breakdown of who this individual is?
No, I thought you had that written out.
I mean, I can say a few things if you want, and
Yeah,
just
or I
just
can.
add in.
Yeah, I don't care.
Either way.
I just
But,
I like spreading the love.
Back in 1957, Ed Gein was 58 years old, and he was accused of killing a hardware store owner in the town he lived in Wisconsin. And it was very interesting because initially they could not locate the body, and then they did, and she was found in a shed on his property. And she was decapitated and basically hanging upside down by her ankles and then gutted like you would a deer. They said that she was dressed out like a deer. She'd been shot with a rifle. And it was at that point, obviously, they're looking at him further. This is clearly a homicide. She didn't put herself in that position and gut herself. But then they found just some really over-the-top, disgusting things in his home, like other human bones and fragments, things made out of human skin, like a wastebasket and human skin covering chairs.
Lampshades, bowls made of skulls, the weird woman
Leggings made
suit.
from human leg skin.
Yeah, the nipple belt.
Yeah, the nipple stuff was...
He had a lot of very, very disgusting things, and so they believed that he had murdered more people. He basically was found to have murdered at least 2 women, but there were several others that had gone missing that they were attributing to him. But he was also what they called a grave robber because he would break into graves, if you will, and cut body parts out or take the bodies and make things out of their bodies as well. He had, like, for example, a pair of lips that was a window shade drawstring. Very, very disgusting. And he initially was charged, but there's a whole story behind all of how he got charged and what happened after that I think we should get into, but I didn't know if you have more details on what he did.
Maybe we should talk a little bit about his upbringing. We went straight to him being a man in his 50s who's committing these crimes, grave robbing, murdering people in the town that he lived in. That woman's name was Bernice Worden, just to throw that out there. I think we should talk about his mother and sort of the suffocating upbringing that he had with a woman that hated other women or wanted him to hate other women.
They were just very, very religious, like very devout and did not want him with any women until he was married, and ingrained that in his brain from, I think, a very young age. And his dad had passed away before, but he was an alcoholic, I'm pretty sure. So not a super stable parent.
Well, not only was his dad an alcoholic, but he also beat the family as well.
Abusive alcoholic it was. And then the mother, I mean, is it true that she made him read from the book of Revelation every single day?
I don't know. I didn't read that part.
Oh, I saw something that said that. Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah.
But also had preached to her son that women were evil.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys watched the monster drama.
No, I tried not to.
Yeah, it was very interesting. And I know parts of it were traumatized. Yeah. But just part of it was so fun. I don't know why it was so funny to me when his mom refers to women as Jezebels in the show.
Say it.
No, I'm not going to say it, but she just...
You've been saying it every night before you go to bed. She's like...
Jezebel. Stay away from those Jezebels. I don't know. It's so... The actress in that show, it was...
She did a good job?
Yeah, comedic relief for sure.
But is it supposed to be funny?
Probably not, but it was like after... Anyway, yeah, so...
Yeah.
He was very enmeshed with his mom. Is that like a fair term?
I think that, in looking at his early life too, a lot of people said he had very strange mannerisms and behaviors, and that was just him above and beyond the stuff with his parents. But they did say that he did fairly well in school, particularly in reading, I guess, was like a strong suit for him.
And he had a brother.
He did have a brother who died under mysterious-ish circumstances. It was a fire, but he also had some bruising and trauma to his head.
Yeah, the monster show basically said that he killed him.
Okay.
Yeah, but
that was never. He was never accused of actually killing his brother.
No,
but there were some weird circumstances, and he also he knew. And it's not weird, but I saw one of the articles I was reading said he knew exactly where the body was. I'm like, is that crazy that he knew exactly where the body was?
No.
I don't think so either, but the trauma to the head piece.
Yeah. And they said his mom, or the brother, I think his name is Henry, was not as close with his mom as Ed was, and maybe was trying to get Ed away from his mom. And Ed took it personally and was offended on behalf of his mother.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, the piece that I read too said Henry often spoke badly of their mother to Ed, and maybe that was an effort to get him away from her, and that just kind of seemed to tick Ed off.
Yeah.
Or did it tick the mom off? I mean, she doesn't seem too stable. I mean, I see a world where she controls everything that Ed does. And maybe she convinces him to take out the brother because he's trying to talk sense into him, which feels like he was kind of helping his brother out because she seems like she's an issue.
Yeah.
In my mind. So a question I have is, if a parent controls every aspect of your life, your morality, your sexuality, your thoughts, is it possible for them to create the sort of monster that Ed Gein became?
I don't think it's created simply by those things. I think people can and do and have broke out of molds from their own families and can get away from that. Is it easy? Absolutely not. And some people may be able to do it easier than others. But I have a very difficult time just saying, well, gosh, his upbringing was so bad. This is what created this monster.
So what do you think creates monsters like this? Are people just born this way? Is it a combination of nature and nurture?
I think sometimes they are born with maybe some sort of mental disorder or something to that effect, and that maybe, the upbringing may play into it to some degree. But I think someone who is this inherently evil had something like that within themselves very early on. I don't think this was just he woke up at 58 and decided to be evil. I think maybe he was before that and he just hadn't gotten caught yet.
Yeah. If he hadn't been caught, how far do you think he would have gone? Does he continue this behavior? Does he just continue to kill more people? Is it more grave robbing?
Probably both.
Oh, I think it's all the things. And I think at some point what he was doing wouldn't have been enough, and he would have needed to do more, and he would have, expanded the already grotesque things that he was doing, and who knows what else he might have done.
The interesting thing about that is, and I know this is jumping ahead a little and maybe we'll just jump around. If that's true, why was he after he was caught, he obviously didn't go to prison. He went to a psychiatric type facility. Why was he a model prisoner, essentially?
Because he wasn't in prison and he was in a psychiatric facility.
Why was he a model patient, though? Why did this not manifest itself? If you say that you think that it would have only gotten worse, why did he not take advantage of that around these other people? Like, why?
Because he doesn't have the opportunity as a patient to do the same types of things he did out in the real world with no security. I mean, this was a highly secured facility that he went to, this mental hospital. And this isn't something that you can just easily do when you're there. You're also medicated heavily there, which he probably was not medicated previously. So, they're going to be more compliant. But the other piece of it is I have seen cases where people have done horrible, heinous things, committed murders, and they are placed in a psychiatric facility and they can behave, because chances are if they don't and they're then found competent to stand trial, they could go to prison for their actions instead of being in a psychiatric facility.
So they're in control of their actions enough to be able to stop themselves from acting out in the ways that they did in the public to not be sent to a prison.
Sometimes I think they are. Maybe not in all cases, but in the cases where that's not an option, they don't have the opportunity to behave like they did. They don't have the opportunity to shoot people and kill people. They don't have those weapons. They don't have other opportunities to be alone with people. It's very secure with other staff members around and different types of rules and regulations that I think make them into more model patients, because that's what they're there for.
Yeah. How big of a part do you think getting access to medication is to people like Ed Gein? Like, was him finally being medicated a massive part of what kept him from acting out again once he was committed to that state hospital?
I think a lot of that had to do with medication and whatever else treatment that they gave him, but certainly medication played a role into that heavily, I think.
Well, I feel like we're saying everything but he was diagnosed with schizophrenia. So, I mean, I can understand why medication would help if his whole life he's been hearing voices and hearing his mother's voice and seeing hallucinations, and you don't know what's real or not. And then all of a sudden, like, your reality is everyone else's reality, and he's not hearing his mother constantly yell at him all the time or whatever else he was hallucinating.
Yeah, this may not be, I swear I thought this was the truth, but no one that was born blind has ever developed schizophrenia. Isn't that interesting?
That is interesting.
The random fact.
Yeah.
Fun fact.
Fun there. That's our fun fact of the episode.
No, I think one of the things that was interesting about him is how he went about the legal system with the insanity defense and different types of things. And so I don't know if you want to get into that now, but I found that very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, we can get into it if you want. Maybe, is there anything we want to talk about what happened before he was actually caught, or what happened when he was caught? Is there any other additional details there? Or do you want to keep just jumping around? Or
I mean, I kind of think that this plays into it a lot, and it goes into the conversations we were just having. I mean, all of the things they found at his house were so grotesque, and grotesque just isn't even a strong enough word. I mean, it was horrifying, the things they found at his residence.
Yeah.
And he finally gets caught for Miss Warden's murder, but there was another woman that was murdered as well, and they never put him on trial for Mary Hogan, because the judge actually said something to the effect of, due to prohibitive costs, he was only tried for Miss Warden's murder and not Miss Hogan's, but he did admit to killing Miss Hogan. But then this goes back to, okay, what happened? Why didn't he go to prison? And so I believe it was 1957 when he was first arraigned on a murder charge, first-degree murder in Wisconsin, and he pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity. Now, you can't just walk into court and say, hey, you know what? I'm insane. I'm going to plead not guilty by reason of insanity. And so the courts, like nowadays, and I assume it was somewhat similar back then, will have you go to a state hospital and have what's called a competency exam done, and then also a criminal responsibility done. So those are two separate things that need to be done before a criminal case can proceed. The competency examination actually says, is this person competent to stand trial? What that means is, do they understand and appreciate the wrongfulness of their act? Can they assist their attorney in their defense? Do they understand the rules of the judge, of the prosecutor, of the jury, all of those types of things? And it's at that time initially when he is diagnosed with schizophrenia and found mentally incompetent. Now, that doesn't end a case. It didn't end it back in 1957, and it doesn't end it now. The law allows the doctors at those hospitals to say whether or not they believe the person could be restored to competency over a period of time. And in this case, they gave him treatment, they gave him medication, and he was treated for about 9 years. And it was at that point, after 9 years of treatment, he was then mentally able to confer with counsel and participate in his defense. So he was put on trial in 1968 for Miss Warden's murder back in 1957. Was found guilty at a bench trial, and that was a request by the defense. A bench trial is heard by a judge, not a jury. So the judge found him guilty of the murder, but then they had to have a second trial with regard to his legal insanity. Was he legally insane at the time he committed the crime? And that's the second part of that. It's the criminal responsibility part of it. And they found that he was not guilty at that point by reason of insanity. So then he was sentenced to the state hospital for the criminally insane for the rest of his life. So that's why he didn't go to prison. It's one of those things where I often wonder, like, he had 9 years of treatment, 9 years of consistent medication, and then suddenly they find him competent. They go to trial, and suddenly he decompensates. What do you guys think would make someone decompensate so much to where they are now back in the insanity category and not competent?
I feel like it could be a number of factors. I feel like it could be the level of comfort that he developed with the people that he was around for 9 years and who he had his, psychiatric sessions with, and just that environment in general. And then being put into the stressful environment of going into a court and potentially being moved to a prison could absolutely, move someone back into that category or have them regress. Because another thing that I saw that some of the psychiatrists that had worked with him had said was that he had a very childlike demeanor. And some of them said it was almost like he had the emotional maturity of literally a child. And that's strange for someone who's an adult. So I feel like there's something to that. I don't know if you saw something similar.
I did see something similar, and I think you kind of hit it there that, when they deemed him competent, he was taken from the hospital setting and put into probably a local or a county jail setting at the time while his trial was pending and then pending his sentencing. And so the environment may have been one where it allowed some decompensation, but also, was he taking his medications the same way? Was he taking them consistently? If not, that would have allowed for decompensation as well.
That's a great point.
But we have seen some cases, and I've had several of them over the years, and I'm not saying this is all applying to him, but where the person feigns or fakes additional insanity type things because now he's out of the, comfort of the hospital and in a jail cell instead. And so if maybe he acts a little more crazy, then maybe he'll be treated like that. I do think in this case, it may be a combination of all those things, the environment, maybe his meds weren't consistent, maybe he feigned it a little bit more too. That certainly could be a possibility. But, he proved it enough to some degree where he was sent back to the facility for the rest of his life.
But what's the point of trying him once he's competent if really it comes down to if he was insane at the time of the crime? Like, that was already known, I feel like.
Those are two separate standards. So you have to have competency first to be able to move forward. And then you look at legal insanity. Back then they did it a little differently. Now we would look at them both prior to a trial, but back then maybe they didn't according to the law. Now we would look at them both ahead, and we could either do what we call NGRI, which is not guilty by reason of insanity, or some people may try guilty but mentally ill. But you still want to proceed with the case, because if they hadn't proceeded knowing that he was insane, he would be out among the public and doing this all the more.
Do you think Ed Gein was actually insane?
It's a hard one for me to answer. I don't have his medical records. I don't have the psychiatrist reports or whether or not the psychiatrist believed all the things he did. I think some people would like to believe that a person who does the most horrible, heinous things that he did has to be insane for them to actually do those crimes. On the other hand, in my career as a prosecutor for over 25 years, I've seen some people do some inherently horrible, grotesque acts, and they were not insane. They were just pure evil. So I don't know if he was fully insane or not. I don't. But I do think there was a level of evil within him that really pushed him into the limits of what he did.
Do a lot of people who commit acts of violence like this plead insanity?
They try.
Yeah.
They try. And that's why we have the system that is in place now where they have to be deemed competent by a doctor of forensic psychology. And then they have to go through several different types of examinations to determine whether or not they were legally insane at the time. And I can tell you, in a majority of the murder cases I've done over the years, people try this route, and they try it a lot. But the law in Michigan has become very narrow on it. It used to be something called diminished capacity, which meant your mental abilities were diminished by whatever mental illnesses you might have. And now the test for legal insanity is different. They still look at those things, but it's a broader spectrum. It looks at a variety of different things. It looks at your medical history. It looks at what happened in this case, how you responded, all of those details. And so while I've had several people who've committed murders try the insanity route, they have not been found legally insane.
No one ever in your 25 plus years has ever been found legally insane in any of the cases you've worked on.
No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is the majority of them have not. I think I had one homicide case over 25 years that was found to be legally insane.
And did you agree with that?
What do I agree with?
Did you agree with that?
No, I didn't.
Really?
Yeah.
What kind of mental illness or insanity, level of insanity were they claiming?
I'm trying to remember back. It was a situation where the perpetrator shot a step-parent, and just randomly, out of the blue, no issues with the step-parent that anybody could point to. There wasn't anything going on like that. And there were conflicting reports from doctors at first. And so that's why I always have a concern. If there's a conflicting report, one doctor believes it's insane, one doctor doesn't. And then that becomes problematic, because which side do you believe?
Yeah.
Right?
So what ended up happening to that individual?
That individual was found not guilty by reason of insanity and sent to a psychiatric hospital and given treatment and given medication and all of those things. And at that point in time, the prosecutor's office has no further control over that case. We don't get to appeal. We don't get to be involved. And the psychiatric hospital said he was no longer legally insane because he'd been given treatment and medication, and he was released 4 years after he committed that murder.
But he wasn't found competent after being released to stand trial again?
No. because the law had changed on that. Once he was deemed not guilty by reason of insanity, I couldn't retry him. It wasn't allowed.
How old was he?
Maybe mid-20s, early 30s.
Oh, okay. So an adult.
Yeah.
I was imagining a kid in my head.
No.
Oh, so this person's just out and about right now.
Yes.
Interesting. But they haven't committed any other crimes.
I don't know. I haven't followed the person.
Gotcha. Related to his upbringing and just sort of what shaped him into who he was and some of the activities that he was interested in, did Ed Gein have an obsession with turning himself into a woman?
I think it was about his mom. I think because he tried to dig up his mom's body and couldn't get to it because I think it was covered by concrete or something. And that's when he first exhumed, I'm not entirely sure who it was, but the first dead body that he dug up. And he was trying to like recreate his mother so she was still in the house because he still heard her all the time.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So he did have an obsession with, so what else did he do when it came to like turning himself into a woman?
I think he cut off skin and like boobs, like a chest or like a torso of a woman, and would like wear it and wear like the faces, and which inspired Texas Chainsaw Massacre and I think Psycho too.
Yeah, I think it was, what was it? Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
And Silence of the Lambs.
Psycho, Silence of the Lambs. Did Ed Gein have gender dysphoria?
I don't know that it was that far that he wanted necessarily to become a woman. I think he missed whatever the guidance was or whatever his mother provided for him. I think he missed that to such a degree. He was trying to recreate the feminine, I don't know, something feminine throughout the house. I mean, as Christina was saying, he did take a woman's torso and make it into a corset. I don't remember if he wore that or not. And there were masks of skin and different types of things that he did. But his story did generate a lot. Like we've said, it was Psycho. It was the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It was even as recently as one of the, what were those shows called? Oh, American Horror Story. He was like one of the characters were based on him there. As well as the Buffalo Bill character from Silence of the Lambs, too.
Yeah, I forgot to mention, I think he was also inspired by a lot of pulp magazines. Is that the term? It was like a lot of Nazis, and I think someone in those magazines or something made a skin lamp, or there was someone famous, maybe a Nazi.
Yep.
And that's where he got the inspiration from, and like idolized those people.
Yeah, it's super strange. This was a thought that popped into my mind earlier related to making those items out of like human skin, because humans obviously have sometimes an obsession and fascination with doing that with animals. Teeth, the fur, the skin.
Taxidermy, a whole
animal. I mean, humans do that all the time to animals, right? Beautiful, like, animals. A lot of times that didn't do anything to them, and they're just going after them to try to get these trophies. I know that it feels a lot different, and it seems a lot crazier when it's one human doing it to another human. Isn't it kind of weird, like, the obsession we have, like, especially outside of, like, basic necessity? I understand for food, right, for warmth, things like that. If you really needed, like back in the day especially, I need this, buffalo hide for blankets or clothes or whatever it may be. Mm-hmm. But in today's day and age, when that's not a necessity, doesn't that seem a little weird to go off and kill these animals? And I get hunting, like, great. You want to go shoot some deer and you want the meat? Awesome. It's kind of weird that people like want the pictures and, want the antlers, and for other animals, they want the teeth. Like, they want the skin. Yeah. They want...
Especially, like, beautiful, like, people who go out to, like, Africa and, like, that kind of... It's just, like, what is... Yeah. That's got to be some type of mental illness,
I want this giraffe head.
Right. Absolutely not. Yeah.
Like, I need this. Let's kill this rhino.
I think there's some weirdness to it, but I do think there's a lot of people who see it differently. Like it's hunting season right now in Michigan, and gun season is going to be starting soon as well. So there's a lot of hunters out there who would probably disagree with that they see it differently, maybe as a sport, or they do see some of those things as a trophy. I'm not saying that I agree or disagree with any of that, but I do think people see it a little differently than you do.
Yeah, for sure. And if you asked Ed probably saw it differently than we would too.
Yeah.
You don't see it as a difference between animals and humans?
There is a difference between animals and humans, but at the same time, when you get out of that realm of like necessity and you're just doing it for like show or for fun or to get like some thrill out, it just seems, I don't understand. There's no part of my mind that's, I can't wrap my head around it.
I feel like that makes the murder of Bernice, was her name, right? That he strung up. I feel like it makes it even weirder because I don't think he had ever hunted deer or done that to an animal.
Was he not a hunter?
Like, I think he maybe learned a bit how, but I don't think he actually ever killed a deer or did that to a deer, but did it to a human?
Yeah. Which is, and I'm not justifying that at all by any means. I'm just bringing up the parallel of outside of the realm of basic necessity, humans do really weird stuff when it comes to animals. And I do not, there's no part of me that thinks like, oh yeah, like that's totally normal. Like it's very strange to me.
Well, I mean, I can see that, but I think there are some things people might view as luxury items that come from animals, like leather car seats or leather clothing or fur clothing or different kinds of things. That's clearly not a necessity, but a lot of people still have that.
Yeah. For sure. I get that. But I mean, even putting like an animal head in your house, like I've never understood that. Like that seems.
It's the trophy aspect.
Yeah,
for sure.
I don't understand that. But by eating, like I get that. Clothing, I get that.
Yeah.
All right, let's move off this. Did the justice system get it right? Was Ed Gein mentally ill, or was he just evil?
I think he was very mentally ill. I think he was also evil, but I think medication and support helped him a lot and would have probably prevented a lot of this if he had gotten it when he was younger.
I think it's hard to say which is primary, mental illness or evilness, without being able to see what his actual psychological report said. We've said this time and time again that the media, whether it is a documentary on one of the streaming platforms or it is news articles or, even Wikipedia, is given what they want to share, is spun in a way that it can be spun. And so without actually having the documentation from the psychological analysis, it's hard to say if that was his primary. Do I think there was some mental illness there? Absolutely. But I also have seen firsthand the evilness of people like this, and they were simply evil for evil's sake. So I don't know that I can say, was he 100%, legally and criminally insane, or was it evil as well?
That's a good point about just other people in the general public also being evil. Is there another Ed Gein out there? It's hard to believe with billions of people in the world that there isn't someone out there that has a similar interest, or if you want to call it an affliction, a similar affliction to Ed Gein for digging up these types of dead bodies and using them to make an assortment of household type items and weird clothing and masks and things like that. Is there another Ed Gein out there, or is there another case that you know of where someone was similar to Ed Gein in this regard?
I do think there are probably, unfortunately, other cases out there. I do think at times murderers learn from prior murderers, and we saw that very clearly in the Idaho murders case. That prisoner, which I'm not going to say his name, that prisoner actually was researching prior murderers and prior serial killers to see what they did and what got them caught. And so having all of this kind of thing in the media all the time can show others who may have a predilection to do these things, may have an evil intent, may have a mental instability. And when you put that all together, they can research how to do this and how not to get caught. So I hate to say, but there probably are people out there who do things like this.
Do you think there's a large number of murderers, killers out there that just will never be caught? Or do we catch most of the killers? It's something that I think people think about a decent amount. I know I've thought about it because, and obviously it's impossible to get statistics, but you just see things like people are like, you've walked by several serial killers in your life and you had no idea. Like, how many of those types of people do you think are actually out there, and do you think the majority of them actually get caught?
I think a majority of them get caught, but I think there are some that are able to skate past the system, to skate past the investigation. Many episodes ago, we did one on Indigenous women in the Canada area, and I don't believe those people have ever been caught. There are missing persons throughout the United States all the time, and they are missing for a reason because their killers haven't been caught. And so I do think it is likely that there are a lot of those people out there, and you may not know who they are. If you think about some cases, maybe not Ed Gein, but other types of cases that may have been horrible and horrendous and horrific and all of the bad things, but they've been committed by people who seemingly seemed fairly normal on the outside, right?
Yeah. So do you think people like that can be cured, or do you think that they're beyond saving? Like, because Ed Gein didn't act out again and never murdered anyone again, or never, did anything with dead bodies that we know of again, would you consider him cured?
No, I wouldn't. And that's why they never let him out of the hospital for the criminally insane. He wasn't able to do more murders or do the things that he did that were so grotesque because he was still hospitalized. Mm. Had he been let out, I would have worried for the safety of anybody who would have been around him.
So he knew enough to not act like that around other people, or knew that there were harsher repercussions if he did act out like that. The desire, so you don't think the desire ever went away. He just knew that if he acted on it, he would be probably moved to an environment that would have been much more detrimental to his own comfort and well-being.
Well, this was a maximum security facility that he was in, so I don't think he could act on it the same way he did before. I don't think he had the opportunity to.
But people hurt people all the time in maximum security facilities.
They do, but not to the level of skinning
people.
He's not going to be able to skin people like that.
Yeah, but he could kill somebody in theory.
I think he was also just very isolated when he was living on his own. His mom was gone, his brother was gone, his dad was gone, and then now he's in this hospital and he's being cared for, and maybe feels like people actually care about him, you know what I mean? And then without the opportunity, I think,
I'm just asking because is the desire still there for someone like him? Did it actually go away, like you're saying, once the environment changed and he wasn't as isolated? I just don't know.
I feel like
we also don't know if he was in solitary confinement to any degree. We don't know what his access in these hospitals were to other patients. I would assume in a maximum security facility like this, with someone who has been convicted now of these types of crimes that he did, they probably weren't going to leave a whole lot to chance with him. Maybe he was in solitary. He didn't have a roommate. He didn't have access to other people. I mean, there's a lot that we don't know, and a lot that the media hadn't necessarily reported about his life in that prison. And I think that would be helpful, if we had a little more detail on that.
The documentary I watched interviewed one of the nurses that worked there, and she met Ed Gein for the first time, was introduced by Dr. Schubert to him, and turned around and she was very freaked out, she said. And then after she got to know him, she was like, I just can't believe this is the guy that committed these horrible, horrible things. So many people were just so surprised that he did this because he seemed
polite, well-behaved,
kind.
Even people said helpful.
Right.
He seemed like a good person.
Right. And I can imagine maybe for him hearing or getting the diagnosis of schizophrenia would, I don't know, you understand yourself better finally. You're like, oh, this is why this has all been happening, or I feel like, because he also used to say that he couldn't really remember the murders, which I know a lot of murderers probably say just to say like, oh, I don't know what I did. But he used to say that it was all hazy, like he really didn't know what he was doing at the time, or so, which who knows if that's true. But I think schizophrenia would.
People do say that a lot, but he did remember going into the hardware store. He remembered picking up a gun. He remembered firing it, and he remembered it hitting her and shooting and killing her. What he didn't remember is the horrible, heinous things he did after the fact.
Yeah.
And sometimes people don't want to admit it. Sometimes they block it out because it is so bad. They can't allow themselves to see themselves in that manner of somebody who would do those really, really bad things. Yeah. They remember the parts of it that they can, and then they push apart the other part that makes them look like a monster.
And I think human memory in general just isn't it's not reliable. But yeah, I understand the point that you're making too, Myrene. If Ed Gein, if his mother, Augusta was his mother, right?
Yeah.
If Augusta Gein never dies, would Ed have become this monster? Or would he have just, stayed the harmless, childlike individual that he kind of was? Was it the death of his mother that started this, or do you think this was happening in some form or fashion before his mother had passed away?
No, I think it was after the death of his mother. Yeah.
So do you think that the faces, like there was like, how many faces were there? Like it was like a lot of faces. I feel like I thought it was like 9 or 10 or something, like even one face is crazy. Was it a way for him to try to get close to his mother again?
I think so. Bring her back.
Yeah. Were they all women?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah.
They were all women. I guess I disagree just a little bit. I think that, his relationship with his mother was very weird, no question. But for someone to do the level of things he did, I also think he had an evilness within him that would have surfaced at some point regardless.
Yeah.
So it was just a matter of time.
Yeah.
He was still schizophrenic, so I mean.
But was he schizophrenic though? Because I know you're saying that. I know that he was diagnosed by some people, but like Myrene had mentioned earlier, I believe there were some people who didn't think that he was schizophrenic. Like there were some professionals that thought he was, and some that didn't think that he was. But you think he was?
Yeah, and that's the hard part, because that's subjective depending on who your expert is, depending on what their background is. I mean, it can be subjective, even in looking at, cases we've analyzed before, like the Menendez brothers. There were multiple doctors who diagnosed them one way and then other doctors who said no. So it does depend on who the expert was.
Yeah, and mental health back in the 50s. I mean, they had probably just finished giving lobotomies at that time. So I feel like just the understanding of mental health was so...
that was just the norm.
Right.
It's like ice pick right through the eye, stir it up a little bit.
Good God, I cannot believe that was actually a thing.
Yeah. I listened to a Stuff You Should Know episode that was talking about a guy who gave like a ton of lobotomies. He basically had like a mobile like lobotomy clinic. And just like step right up.
Oh my God.
Your wife mouthy? Like step right up. It sounds crazy, but like
holy shit.
You know what, John? I may be remote, but Christine and I are going to gang up on you in just about a minute.
What do you mean? What are you talking about?
No, it's just
you don't understand the tone in which I'm saying this. I'm saying it's so ridiculous that like a woman having thoughts or ideas or or wanting to not be a housewife. It's like, okay, something's wrong here. It's like, let's put an ice pick in their eye.
Right.
And, stir things up a little bit.
Right.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane.
Yeah.
And the people who probably did that.
There is an interesting twist I want to mention to this, because I just want your reactions to it, and maybe you've seen it. But his house and all of his like outbuildings, he had barns and sheds and all kinds of things, were on like 195 acres that he owned in Wisconsin. And all his possessions were still in the house. And that was all scheduled to be auctioned like a year after the murders, like in 1958. And it was rumored that people wanted to turn that whole property into like a tourist type thing where you could go and see where he did these horrible things, and you could tour the area and see what you could find. And then, ironically, the house was destroyed by fire. Did you hear about this?
Yeah.
I did.
They said that a cleaning crew was disposing of some refuse, but that the fire did not spread from that location. It was like 75 feet away from the house, but the house caught on fire. And they thought potentially it was arson, although it was never proven. But do you know who the fire chief was at the time in that area?
No.
Frank Warden.
Oh.
His mother was Bernice.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. He burned it down.
I don't blame him.
Yeah, I don't either.
Especially because they're going to turn it into an attraction. I mean, it's bad enough that people are doing like podcasts and making shows about this stuff. But turning into an attraction, like where your mother was literally hung up like a deer and gutted.
Right. Well, they did at one point, like his car was an attraction. I remember they did make some kind of attraction. I don't know if people ever walked through the house. They depicted that on the Monsters show, but I don't know if that was actually true. I wonder if that happened before they burned it down.
I think that's what they wanted to do with the house, but they didn't get the chance.
Yeah.
But the car was sold. It was a Ford sedan where he would haul the bodies around, and it was sold to a carnival. And they charged carnival goers 25 cents to go look through the car.
Weird. Which, like, what are you getting? Like, what do you... I don't know. That's...
I mean, anything people can make a buck off.
I know, but the people who are paying that, I'm like, what do you think you're going to see? Like, there's not a dead body in there. I think also the entire city of Plainville, Wisconsin did not want... I think they kind of hate the fact that this is what made them famous. You know what I mean? Or made that city, like, known. So
well, I can't imagine being that fire chief, Frank Warden, and be like, people are going to make money off of this. This is where my mom was slaughtered.
Yeah.
Burn it down.
And some people, while they did suspect arson, they also said that maybe it wasn't a priority to the fire chief to go out there and, put the fire out. And maybe it was the case. I don't know.
Yeah, I wouldn't blame him, honestly. I wouldn't want to let that become my mother's death in that way become a spectacle for people to come oogle over.
Yeah. Did you guys see anything about Gein saying that his biggest dream was getting a sex change?
No. I saw he was interested in a woman from Sweden who had transitioned from a man to a woman.
Yeah.
And he was really interested in that, and she was Christine Jorgensen, I think was her name. And he was super interested in that, but I don't know if he actually had that desire or...
Yeah. I don't know if it plays a part in him doing this to women, like solely, so he can have these like features, these womanly features that he thought were desirable, even though he did it in obviously an extremely grotesque and sick way.
Right.
It just feels like it may play into that. And especially at that time, like in Plainville, Wisconsin, Plainville, is it Plainville?
I believe so.
Okay. But just whatever, in America in general, in the world in general at that time. I mean, it's hard enough for people now even.
Right.
Like, it's amazing how critical people still are of people who...
Gender-affirming care.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Now.
Which is funny because, like, a boob job is kind of a gender-affirming care. You know what I mean? For, like, I don't know. Anyways, continue.
Yeah.
Back then.
No, I mean, it would just be unthinkable almost.
Right.
Like rural Wisconsin.
Right.
You want a what?
Which actually makes it surprising to me that Christine Jorgensen was treated the way she was after her sex change. Like she was made into a celebrity.
I don't know. I guess certain people with certain like magnetic personalities, or if they look a certain way. I've never seen a picture of this individual, but obviously if they're more attractive, some people are just more attractive than other people generally. I feel like that can help with popularity, and then just being in a different country that maybe is more accepting than America is.
Well, I think she was American, but she went to Sweden to get it.
And then came back to America?
But don't quote me on that. I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah,
but
I don't know anything about that. Yeah. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
All right. What else about this do you want to touch on before we wrap up?
I think we kind of mentioned it that, all of the things he did spurred all of this popular culture, whether it was movies, it was adaptations, it was TV shows, it was music. There were even music songs that were written about this or him. And I don't know. Sometimes I think that plays a role in perpetuating the violence. I don't
Yeah.
know. What do you guys think about that?
No, I agree. This just popped in my head, but there was a shooting victim from, I want to say, the Parkland school shooting. Don't quote me on that, but I think, and he bought the rights to the shooter's name. So anything that was like which thankfully I don't think people create many murder documentaries on school shootings and mass shootings in general, but I thought that was a really good idea. Like, could you imagine if Frank Warden had bought the rights to Ed Gein's name so he could never, which Ed Gein's not profiting off of this stuff anymore, but so the
Correct.
profits would go to the families of the victims
But
that it actually impacted, not just these producers and these Hollywood people, you know?
Yeah, but the entertainment mediums that made money, it wasn't Ed Gein directly. It was Norman Bates, in Psycho. It was Leatherface in Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It was Buffalo Bill
Yeah,
in Silence of the Lambs. It was never Ed Gein.
right.
So would it matter anyway? Like, most people probably don't even know that Ed Gein is the inspiration for those characters.
Right. There's ways around it, I
I
guess.
think
Yeah.
if they're interested in it, I mean, it's a quick Wikipedia search to find that that's all associated with him. But what do you think he thought of that? Like, Psycho came out, what, in the 70s or before, right?
It was the book was written, I think, 6 months after, like, he was arrested. It was really fast.
Right, but I mean, he's still alive and he's seeing like people take his story and adapt it to fictional characters. What do you think he thought about that?
I think he was so childlike that he was just focused on, his cartoons and his comics. They said that was like his favorite pastime when he was in the facility, the hospital. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like he's like a big kid in a lot of ways sometimes. Like, I can imagine him with like just a bowl of cereal, reading his comics, watching his cartoons, and being polite and asking people if they need any help. And it's just weirding people out because it's like, this dude is literally one of the most deranged. Not even, I mean, I guess he didn't kill that many people, but he still killed people and he still dug up dead bodies.
Yeah.
But he's so
Well, they said he was
childlike.
confirmed murderer of 2, suspected in 7 others, and mutilated at least 9 corpses that they knew of.
Yeah, which means that there are probably more.
Yeah, I'm sure. Like, I'm sure he just didn't start with that. He'd probably been doing that a very long time. That may have been the catalyst that took him from mutilating the corpses to the murders themselves.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, they were investigating those 2 murders, and they go to the house and they find her strung up in one of the outbuildings. But he already had time to make all of those things out of skin and nipples and all the other things he had. So he had been doing that for a long time before he was caught with those murders.
Yeah. I think I do remember a part of the documentary I watched on Amazon that it was one of the nurses or a doctor or someone who worked in the facility when he was there said that he knew people were glorifying this and that there was movies being made about it, and I don't think he liked the glorifying aspect. I think because he also he didn't want to admit like the really gruesome things I think he did, so I think it made him.
I thought I saw a quote that said that he was upset with it because he didn't necessarily see himself as like a killer.
Right.
And he was kind of like, well, I only did that a couple times.
Right.
He was like, it's not actually who I am.
Right. Yeah, which
Which
is
is
like,
still, I mean, it's
But,
like,
I would be curious what that definition is. I'm not a killer. I only
Right.
murdered a couple people, but that doesn't make
Only
me
a couple.
but I think
Jesus.
that goes to like the childlike nature of Ed Gein, even though he was a grown adult.
Yeah, he was 77 when he died of cancer.
Yeah. All right. Anything else we want to touch on? We're at like an hour.
No, I think that's all the things I can think of.
Okay. So that was Ed Gein.
Let us know if we forgot anything.
Yeah, let us know if we forgot any details. It feels strange sometimes discussing cases like this or just any of these cases in general when we have the conversations about how is that a glorification or like a continuation or a justification?
One thing I did want to mention was I think this is a good case to highlight just mental health resources. You know what I mean? Like, because again, I think if he would have had access to that or been diagnosed much younger, I think a lot of this could have been prevented.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've talked about that before. And Myrene's obviously a massive proponent of expanding access to mental health resources in the United States. One of the things that's going to make that extremely challenging is the cost of healthcare going up, doubling, tripling potentially. And I know
definitely not going in the right direction.
I always find a way to make it political, but it really does matter. And it really is. People are going to get sick. People aren't going to go to the hospital. People aren't going to be able to get the care and the medication that they need. And it's going to have horrible adverse side effects in society. Full stop.
Yeah.
I am not chuckling about the story that we just talked about or the mental health issues or the crisis by that, but I just John's comment, I find a way to make it political.
Right.
I do, because life is political.
It is.
Right? Just because.
No, I wanted everybody to understand. I'm not laughing at the other things. It's just, it's kind of our little thing, mine and John's. We just kind of go back and forth about. So
it is, and I knew that's what you were laughing at too. I didn't think you were laughing at anything else. And Myrene is a big fan of expanding mental health care access. So don't come at her for that.
No, I do believe that is the case. But with Ed Gein, I think even if he had some of that, if he had this amount of evil in him, there's only so much mental health can do.
I agree with that as well. I think there are people that, to your point, Myrene, are just born evil or who have experienced so much trauma. It's hard to bring them back from that. And it's sad, especially when it's inflicted upon young, impressionable babies that don't know any better. And that's their reality. And it just deforms and dements them mentally sometimes in ways that just makes it so they can never be normal again. Yeah. And it's horrible.
Yeah.
So if you have any questions, if we missed any details, if you have a case that you want to suggest for us to discuss and go over, reach out, BTV_pod on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, any of the places.
Let us know what you think. Do you think this is a mental health issue for Ed Gein, or do you think there was evilness throughout his life inside of him? Let us know your thoughts. I'm curious what you think.
And if you're enjoying the podcast, share it with a friend, rate us. It's how we get to more people. And you can find more episodes wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.